Hello, a very warm welcome. My name is Jamie Owen, and if you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you and our second session of this morning. When a business needs external funding to start up or scale up, many of us will seek investment from a business angel. We've all heard the words. What does it mean? In a business angel, there is the chance to access capital, connections perhaps, and of course, sector experience. So getting the right investor fit is absolutely key to this story. The right backing from the right business angel can, of course, propel your business to new levels. We have a fascinating panel of angel experts here to discuss this and other related angel topics in much more detail. So it's a very great pleasure to introduce to you, first of all, in no particular order, the wonderful Jenny Tooth, OBE, an established speaker with extensive experience of the world of angel investing. Jenny is CEO of the UK Business Angels Association, the trade body, I suppose, for angel and early stage investing, representing over, I think it's about 18,000 investors all around the UK. Very warm welcome to you. Lovely to see you. In the studio, let me introduce you to my colleagues here. Rodney Appiah needs no introduction, the former investment banker, non-executive director and venture capital investor. He's currently chairman of Cornerstone Partners, the leading UK angel network backing exceptional black and diverse founders. And finally, last but not least, Steve Holt is here, the director of Angels Invest Wales, the largest angel network in Wales, and part of the Development Bank of Wales Group. So our panel, welcome to all of them and welcome to you. And if you missed the earlier session, I should explain to you this is live. You're perfectly welcome to get in touch and ask questions, and we'd be delighted to hear from you. So let's first of all begin with the role of business angels. Let's start, I think, with Jenny here, the CEO of the UK Business Angels Association. What is the role of a business angel exactly? Bear in mind, many people watching this session won't know exactly what it is that you guys are about. Are you there to just diversify the investment portfolio? Tell us more.
No, thank you very much, and apologies I can't join you today, but a real pleasure to be here. It's important to bear in mind that a business angel is someone who is actually using their own money. They're usually business people, professionals, people who've got a background often in building and growing businesses themselves, but who are passionate about entrepreneurs. But they are using their own money. It's not someone else's money, which may be if you're a VC fund manager. What the most important thing to bear in mind about an angel is that they bring huge amounts of experience, of knowledge, and expertise that can really help you build and grow those early stages of your business. They are there as aligned to entrepreneurs. They're not there to force an exit. They're there very much to support you in your growth journey and that early nurturing, as well as building significant traction that builds your business towards going further for further growth funding. Angels often use their own money in small amounts as individuals, but when working as a syndicate, they can often bring between about 100,000 and even 1.5 million in an early stage deal. And angels follow on. They give more money to entrepreneurs as you build and grow your business to help you move towards that next phase as you scale your business. So those are very important considerations. I think you had a little bit earlier that often people are looking for like a 2 to 5 year exit scenario if you're taking equity. But angels are different. They're very much there to support you, to grow at your own pace, and they're often in there for the long term. So we call it patient capital because they'll stay in there often for up to about 12 years until you exit. But angels do want a return, and that's something that you do need to bear in mind. They are looking for growth and they are looking for returns. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an overview of really how to find an angel we'll talk about a little bit later on, but also thinking about what the profile of an angel is. It's, they are there, they're on your side, and they're generally a great individual.
You make it sound almost religious. Jenny, thank you very much for that. Don't go away. We'll be coming back to you much more in this session. Let's talk about being investor ready. Rodney, you'll often hear businesses being described, well, we heard it earlier on in the first session, about being investor ready when dealing with business angels. But as an investor, what does that mean exactly? What does investor ready look like from your perspective?
Yeah, and I think it's a term that's bandied around quite a bit, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think from my perspective, it's about providing a very clear articulation of a team, a plan, and an idea that would benefit from external capital to grow quickly. And I think being able to do that and have all those ingredients in place to give investors and any source of funding the confidence that that business can grow with their support and with their capital is absolutely critical. And so what does that break down into in sort of practical terms? It's things such as being able to articulate your story very clearly through a pitch deck, for example, or being able to put together a series of financials that present a credible but exciting and impressive growth story over the next 5 to 7 years in terms of financials. It could sort of provide some detail around the market that you're seeking to disrupt. It could provide some insight into the technology or the IP that you're seeking to defend and to develop over a period of time. So it's about telling that story, and really investing is about telling stories and telling stories that are believable, telling stories that are compelling, telling stories that are credible. And that's what it means to be investment ready. If you can articulate that story to a provider of capital, you're much more likely to get a positive response and lead on a positive journey.
And can I ask you, this week of all weeks, I wonder, does a business's environmental and social impact also play a part here?
I think it does, particularly in light of COP26. Investors, both angel investors like myself, Steve, and Jenny, but also institutional investors, fund managers. ESG is right at the top of the agenda, environmental, social, and governance issues, and looking for businesses that can provide both a profit element but also an impact element is becoming increasingly important. And being able to articulate how your business provides more impact to a broader set of stakeholders is critical. And there's lots of different areas in which you can do that. Can you do that in the sense of providing sustainability with regards to your business? Is your business sustainable in terms of how it sources products, how it develops value over a period of time, in terms of how it engages with its broader stakeholder units rather than just the shareholders? I think on the sort of the other issues, the social issues, particularly with respect to cornerstone partners, I think this increased focus around diversity and the desire to promote a more diverse and representative community, both of angel investors but also of founders, is critically important. If you look at the stats over the last 10 to 15 years, less than 2% of venture capital funding went to female founders, and less than 1% of venture capital funding went to ethnic minority founders, and that clearly can't be right in such a dynamic and cosmopolitan environment that we have in the UK, where we celebrate immigration and the role it plays in terms of creating a dynamic economy. So I think all of these things are important considerations for investors.
The statistics you just quoted will horrify people watching. Let's throw it back to you. Why is it so bad?
There's a number of different issues that are at play, Jamie, and I think in many respects they're intersectional. So from the founder perspective, there is a lack of social capital, particularly for female founders and ethnic minority founders. And by that I mean an awareness of the benefits of engaging with angel investors and venture capital investors. And so because of that lack of awareness, there's a perception that audience is not for them, and that they're not best placed to help them support and grow their businesses. From the investment standpoint, we've got to do a better job in finding these companies. They operate in slightly different networks to the networks that we're used to. We've got to be much more proactive in engaging with them, hosting events, educating the audiences around the benefits of capital to help them accelerate and scale their businesses. And so I think those are the two main issues that are at play.
Let's go back to Jenny briefly. I just want to ask you, how does being investor ready differ between a startup and a scale-up?
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, we'll pick up on some of the points that Rodney made a little bit later on as well, I think, when we talk about some kind of the myths and barriers around angel investing. But actually, when you're moving from being a startup to scaling, the first of all I would want to say is everyone who goes for equity should be thinking about scaling. It should be kind of in your DNA when thinking of going for angel and equity investment, because that capacity to scale and building that into your early kind of thinking and strategy is fundamental. Really, when you're thinking about scaling your business and positioning yourself for those bigger funds that will hopefully follow on once you've successfully built those early phases of your business with angel support. It's things like how you're going to start to grow your team, how you're going to build the skill set around your business so that you've got the right players, everything from marketing to sales to product development. Thinking that how you're going to build those players in your team is very important, and thinking about leadership as well. If you're the founder or the CEO, how are you going to lead that team to make sure that you're ready for bigger growth? Other aspects are really about growing your customer base. You, as an angel, we're quite happy to invest in businesses that are pre-revenue and often don't have often a large number of early customers, sometimes just a lot of intent. But really, by this time, as you're scaling, you need to be thinking, where can I really explore this and find a lot bigger base of customers? It could well be scaling your markets as well, looking at how you extend your markets, your market reach. Could be just outside your own region, but it could also be looking internationally. And also generally thinking about the kind of milestones of maybe product development or technology development, so that you can really demonstrate that you have that capacity to really grow and extend your business. We're looking for growth, we're looking for returns, and that ability to really show that you're taking the milestones to scaling is quite fundamental. And as I said, it can't really start early enough. So scaling should be kind of part of your general strategy when working with angels and looking generally at equity.
Let's bring in Steve now, Steve Holt at Angels Invest Wales. I mean, you deal with a lot of businesses looking for investment. Where can they go? Where should they go to get help to become investor ready?
First of all, to echo Jenny and Rodney's comments, investor readiness, much used term, but it's about being prepared, really. Obviously, my focus is Wales, and I feel in Wales there's quite a lot of support, actually. I mean, we would naturally refer early stage businesses to Business Wales, who have a suite of support tools really that can take businesses from the startup phase through to the scale-up phase. We would also very quickly look to get the businesses in front of angels. Angels are very good at providing advice. The advice is sometimes worth more than the money. So we would try to make that connection fairly early, and the complexion of the angel network in Wales really is aligned to that, because a lot of our angels have been on that previous journey, self-made people who've made money buying and selling companies and are keen to put that advice back. So you have to make a first impression. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So sometimes you have very few bites at it. So being prepared is key, but getting in front of the angel to get the advice is also key. And aside from that, we would naturally in the network introduce entrepreneurs and early stage businesses to other companies that have been on the journey and have learnt, sometimes the hard way, but the ups and downs of the journey. So there are many avenues, and I feel in Wales there's quite a lot of support around.
And once they are investor ready, where can they meet? Where should they meet and talk to potential investors?
Well, I would say this, wouldn't I? But they should come to us at Angels Invest Wales. I mean, we're a one-stop shop for making that connection. We have a platform where they can showcase their opportunity, or we can do one-to-one introductions or small group introductions. As Jenny said earlier, the trend very much at the moment is syndicate investing. So we are keen to put businesses when they are ready, or when we've sort of quality checked them, if you like, for the readiness, in front of investors as soon as possible.
I just want to talk to all of you about getting the right investor fit, because that's crucial on this, isn't it? I mean, Steve, Angels Invest Wales acts as a network for bringing together investors and businesses. So just how important is it to get the right fit between business and angel?
Oh, crucial. I mean, we push it back to the business very often to say, well, look, what type of investor are you looking for? What type of angel are you looking for? Because it's a given that they're looking for funding. So the angel or the investor will know that when they sit in front of the business. But I think the personal chemistry is absolutely vital, and it works both ways, because to get the right investor on board for the right part of the journey that the business is on is the number one question. And we always push it back to the business. What are you looking to achieve? Maybe you need an investor that is experienced in the market that you're looking to penetrate. They've got the battle scars, they've been there, they've been successful, and that sort of factor and that sort of issue comes into play, really, alongside the funding. They know the investor is keen to invest, and they're keen to get the funding, but it's the experience of the journey that they're on, I think.
Jenny Tooth, getting the right investor fit, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Agree with Steve. It's really important that you do your homework, and just as angels do due diligence on you as a business, you absolutely need to do the same to them. You need that added value that Steve mentioned, and that's just as valuable as the money. So actually understanding what they've invested in before, what kind of entrepreneurs, what sectors they've invested in, and actually not being afraid to talk to other entrepreneurs who've had money from those angels is also perfectly fine. Because it's really a marriage, it's very long term, the relationship, so you need to get it right. So taking time to check each other out, actually spending a lot of time meeting and talking with each other is really important, but not being afraid to ask some key questions about their own ambitions, their own objectives in investing in you, and making sure that you thoroughly know each other before you go into that. And that's true if it's an individual angel or if it's a syndicate, especially who's going to lead in investing in you and who's going to spend time in your business. Understanding their motivations and their skills is really important.
Rodney, just a perspective from you as an investor on getting the right investor fit.
Yeah, I think there are sort of three key considerations from my perspective. The first is absolutely agreeing with Steve on chemistry. Chemistry is vitally important. It's a long journey. As Jenny mentioned, it could be up to 12 years, and you want to make sure that the investors that you're inviting to your cap table are individuals that are going to be people that you want to work with during the good times, but also during the very challenging times. And there will be some ups and downs through that journey as you're growing your business, as there is invariably in early stage businesses, because it's never ever a smooth linear ride. I think the second thing that's really important is the terms that come with the capital. And I think that's often overlooked. And what I mean by the terms, I'm talking about the legal framework by which that investment is being made, and to what extent the investors are looking for certain types of protections, certain types of sort of levels of involvement at certain stages during your journey of the business. And depending on the type of fund that you are, you might want to have a lot of involvement. In other words, you might want a mentor or a coach, or you might want very little involvement and actually want someone who's quite passive, because you're very clear about what you're trying to achieve and over what time frame. And then I think the final thing is, and probably the most important thing, but we don't really spend a lot of time talking about it, is what value add does that investor bring to the table? There's no point getting the capital and having a really good fit with a person if they can't actually help you to grow your business over the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's really important. So can they do it in a very practical way? Can they introduce you to customers? Can they make the appropriate introductions? Can they identify problems within your business or share some shared learnings? All of these things are critical when you're assessing the right investor fit.
And all of this, for the first time entrant, all of this sounds totally daunting. I mean, we're very British and very polite, and we don't like these crunchy kind of difficult meetings, do we? I mean, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Steve, I mean, what can businesses do to avoid getting the wrong investor on board? I mean, you just need to be frighteningly blunt and difficult, I suppose.
I think so. I think there's a certain mystique around angels as well. I think some businesses are very cautious of being introduced to a business angel, but I think when you show them the human face, all of that changes. It goes back to the same thing, is being prepared. I encourage the business to put themselves in the shoes of the investor and think, as Jenny said earlier, they're investing their money. You know, you're not giving a part of your company away, you're selling a part of your company to the investor. So just put yourself in their shoes, be prepared, and be confident about your business as well. And enthusiasm, that's the number one thing that the angel looks for, is that the entrepreneur is absolutely super enthusiastic about their business because they're selling them the concept.
Rodney, what about businesses needing to do the research on the investors? You do need to sort of dig the dirt almost.
Yeah, and I think Jenny made some great points earlier around how you go about doing that. I think the first thing is try to understand the thesis of the investor. And both angel investors as well as institutional investors will have a thesis. And by thesis, I mean an approach to investing, a theme to investing. They might decide they want to back female founders. They might decide they want to focus on a particular sector or vertical. They might decide that they want to focus on businesses that address a particular problem that they think they have some insight into. So understanding that thesis is really important because that will greatly improve your chances of success in terms of the engagement with that investor. I think the second thing is look at what they've invested in previously. Look at their portfolios, speak to some of those entrepreneurs and get a real life example of how that investor engages on a day-to-day or on a monthly or periodic basis with you as a founder. Because often the pitch that an investor provides is very different from the reality. And I say that as an angel investor. So we should be very open and honest about that. And as founders, you really want to flush that out early, given the length of the relationship. In some cases, it's longer than a marriage. So you've got to do that homework. And then I think the final thing to think about when you're doing that research is you've got to be very mindful that there are different sources of capital. So angel investing is obviously one element of the way in which you can scale your business, but you can also find other sources of capital. You can work with government agencies like Innovate UK, for example, that can provide you with some funding to support the initial conception of your idea. You can engage with grant organisations. You can work with impact investors that care more about the impact and sustainability of your business rather than on the profits. And so understanding the full landscape is critical in understanding what's the appropriate type of capital for you and your business, given what you're trying to achieve.
Jenny, this is in danger of sounding like a marriage guidance council conversation, but I do want to ask you about that sense of the relationship, the alignment of where you're both going, business and angel, and the need to almost align vision and goals. That's critical, otherwise this goes nowhere.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that feeling alignment is very strong, and that's especially important to angels because, as I said, they're in there taking all the risks. They're in there often for the long term. So that alignment and that sense of relationship and understanding each other's perspective is really important. And also so that you can go to the angel and ask for help. One of the big things you have to remember is your business may not always go well. So you need to be able to feel that you can actually go relatively early to the angel and say, look, the cash flow is not going as well, or the plan's not going so well. We're probably going to have to make some changes here. I may even need to have some more money from you in due course, or so on. So you need to feel you've got that kind of confidence. It's also worth bearing in mind, and this is really very important, that often you get concerned when you're approaching angels, and many entrepreneurs say this, especially women entrepreneurs, that you're actually going to lose control, that in some way having an angel in your business means they're going to control your business and actually dictate what you're going to do. Firstly, from an equity point of view, you should never have an angel that takes a lot of equity in your business in that first stage. So when they're giving you capital, it should only be for a relatively small part of your business, 15 to 20% absolute max in those early stages. I often have entrepreneurs come to me and have given away too much of their business in the early phase. So that's another evidence that, you are aligned, because, they're not taking ownership of your business, they're not taking control, they're taking small amounts of capital. So that's really important to bear in mind. And I think that, that actually goes through, I said, in terms of that reporting, that giving progress, telling where things are going wrong, and building that trust between you as you go along. So for me, it's not something to be concerned about. It's something to build on and make very positive links with your investors right from the start.
Rodney, how involved do the businesses want to be?
Sorry, Jamie, just in what context?
In terms of the angel relationship, and what are we talking? If you're a first timer, you have no experience of this, you have no expectation, no understanding of how it works. What are we looking at here in terms of involvement, both in terms of percentage money, but also I'm thinking in terms of time. How much is your presence going to be felt? How much are you going to be there? How much are you going to be on the phone? What is normal? What is acceptable?
Yes, completely understand. So it varies dramatically, and I think particularly during those formative stages of building out your business, you probably are looking for a more involved angel investor than not, because a passive investor doesn't really help you go to the next stage. And so what does that involvement look like? So to give you a very practical and live example, I will typically speak to my founders once a week. And they've got my phone number on speed dial. They can speak to me during the late evening when I'm putting my son to bed. They can speak to me in the morning. And I think you want to have that very close relationship. You want that angel investor to almost be an extension of your family.
Like Samaritans almost.
Yes, yeah. Almost. Because it does get quite lonely being a founder. Being a founder, building a business, making sure that you can meet the payroll, that you can support the broader team.
Do any of these people ever say, look, get out of my life, you're just here too much? It's a serious question though. Does it ever happen where you're just in their faces too much, and it's too much, you just need to give people a bit of fresh air? It must happen. I
think sometimes the relationship can break down, and often it breaks down during those critical moments where there's a lot of stress at play, there's a lot of value at play, and it's very difficult to recover from that position. And so you are right to say that an angel investor needs to recognise when to intervene and when not to. And I think the thing that I always say is that fundamentally as an angel investor, particularly taking a minority stake of less than 10% in most cases, you're backing the team. And you've got to have a lot of confidence that they know how to execute. You're there to be a cheerleader, to be a supportive but constructive ally, but ultimately you're backing them to deliver.
Very diplomatic. I was hoping that, one of the three of you would, come on, there must have been some instance where you've just been told, we're changing the locks, get lost.
As I said, personal chemistry is the key, is the key to this marriage, as Jenny called it. But on a serious note, there is a fair amount of discussion at the very front end before you get into the legalities of the equity investing and the angel coming on board. So you'll know pretty quick if it's the right fit, I think, on personalities.
Jenny, you'll know pretty quickly if it's the right fit. Are you going to tell us any of your horror stories?
Now, I'm not going to tell you my own personal horror story, perhaps, but what I will say is that there are times actually when, the angel's perspective and particularly their thought of when things should happen will be different to yours as an entrepreneur. So, for example, when are you going to start, the next phase of your growth? When are you maybe going to, and one of the biggest ones, when are you going to start positioning yourself for exit and for someone to buy you? That can often be on a very different level to your own expectations, where you think you've still got a long way to go to build and grow your business. So one of the big things about that is making sure you totally understand the end game as well as the start game when you are going into investment with angels, to make sure that you do have the same views on things like exits, growth, next phase of funding, because that's where massive tensions can lie. And it can be vice versa for you as an entrepreneur. You're keen to move on, you're keen to go for growth, you're keen to go for next phase of funding, or keen to go for an exit. And actually the angels can hold you back. So those are very important areas to iron out along the way, but can cause huge tensions.
Well, we're going to move on. I've decided you've all failed my television audition for my 6-part series on the dark side of business angels. You've all been very professional and far too discreet. Let's move on next to barriers. I want to talk here about the common barriers for businesses accessing angel investment. Jenny, let's start with you. Let's talk about barriers. What are they and what are your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, there are interesting barriers, and some of them actually Rodney's touched on too, because one of the barriers often is actually, having access to angels at all. And this is why, we need Angel Invest Wales and networks and groups, because actually one of the hardest things often is to actually get accepted to pitch and present in front of angels. So one of the things you have to make sure is that we've talked about investment ready, but that you've also got something that is really interesting, exciting, innovative, disruptive, something that you can say, this is really worth you talking to me about and me showing you what this is about. And frequently people, entrepreneurs, forget to really show the excitement in their business that really gets them over the line. So I think, getting through there is very, very important and getting their attention. The second thing to bear in mind, and it's really quite common, particularly among women that I have noticed, and Rodney will also say the same among Black and ethnic minority and other underrepresented groups, it's often very, very hard to actually position your business so that you can actually ask for the right amount of money as well from angels. Our experience is that often entrepreneurs do not ask for all the money they need because they're actually concerned as to whether or not they should even be asking for money. It's a difficult thing to do. If you're coming up there saying, give me money for my business, and quite often entrepreneurs underestimate how much money they need and think sort of almost out of kindness it's best to ask for less. Always ask for all the money you need. Always make sure you're doing that. And the main thing is to really show all that you've achieved. I frequently find entrepreneurs coming towards me and especially those who may be a little bit less confident in actually not putting all that they've achieved out there. They've often done some amazing things to get as far as asking for angel investment, but actually are quite tentative about that and quite reticent. So always set your ambitions out there and, and absolutely make sure that you can really position your business to show both how you're exciting, you're scalable, but also why angel investment is the right thing for you. So those are many issues. And then the other part of it is remembering that it is a risky area. You are asking people to take a risk in you. So actually being quite flexible in how you negotiate and approach this in terms of how you see the value of your business is also very important. So I think that some of the kind of barriers that when things go wrong is because there have been some misalignment of some of those points along the way. So, getting in front of the angels, making the best of your opportunity, and then also making sure you're kind of flexible and open, but do not under ask for your funding.
Rodney, thoughts on barriers? What barriers are there out there for both businesses and investors?
Yeah, I think for businesses, one of the biggest barriers is finding angel investors. I think angel investing can be quite opaque. It can be quite unstructured, and obviously that's why having organisations like Angel Invest Wales, the UK Business Angels Association, highlighting the great work of angel syndicates up and down the country is absolutely vitally important for businesses and founders that are looking for that first stage of funding. So I think that's really, really important. I think the other thing that we find often crops up, particularly with regards to underrepresented founders, Black and diverse founders, is getting access to angel investors to actually have that opportunity to pitch their idea. And often there's this term called a warm introduction. So having a warm introduction, and what that means in essence is that having an introduction to an investor that's been pre-qualified by someone that they know. That's what a warm introduction is. And that's so important because investors will see lots and lots of opportunities every day. At Cornerstone, we see between 350 and 400 opportunities a year. I'm sure Angel Invest Wales are similarly inundated. And so investors need to have almost a shortcut in which they can filter through those opportunities. And warm introductions provide that shortcut. And so we do a lot of work of supporting underrepresented founders in trying to identify the best ways to reach the appropriate investors for them. So I think that's a real barrier that we're trying to address by just trying to be a bit more open, a bit more accessible, giving them access to our contact details. Probably the final sort of barrier is just the nature of networks and how networks work. We find in our experience that investors will tend to invest into businesses that they know and businesses that they understand. And so it's really critical that we try to encourage more diversity with regards to networks. We encourage more diversity in teams. If you hire more female investors, you tend to back more female founders. And similarly, if you hire more ethnic minority investors, you tend to back more ethnic minority-led founded businesses. So these are some areas that are important to touch on and talk about.
And it's a whole day's discussion, isn't it? It's sad to have to ram it into a couple of minutes because it's so important and so fascinating. But as ever on these conversations, when you have a fascinating bunch of people, you run out of time and the clock is very much against us. So my sincere thanks to all our panellists who've taken part in this part of the day. You've been listening to Jenny Tooth, the CEO of British Angels Association, Steve Holt, the Director of Angels Invest Wales, Rodney Appiah, the early stage investor. You've been great company and thank you so much for your expertise and your time here today.